Good evening, everyone, and you're welcome back to our channel. Today, we are going to be discussing the kingdom fungi. Now, this kingdom fungi has been wrongly classified. It used to be wrongly classified along with plants. But when Robert Whittaker came with his five kingdom method of classification, then the kingdom fungi was brought out and classified differently on its own. Now, they share some characteristics with plants, and that's why they used to be classified along with plants. But now we know that they are not plants. Now, some examples of the members of the kingdom fungi are the mushrooms, the toadstools, the aspergillus, the yeasts, and many other organisms like that. Even candida, mucus, rhizopus, aspergillus, niger, and flavus, all of these together come under the kingdom fungi. Now, this kingdom fungi, we're going to discuss some of the characteristics of the kingdom fungi and the different things we can learn and know about the kingdom fungi. Now, some of their characteristics include: one, they are majorly eukaryotic organisms. We know we've discussed in our past videos a lot of characteristics of different organisms. We know there are prokaryotes, we know there are eukaryotes. But when we started discussing from the kingdom protista up now to the kingdom fungi, all of these are eukaryotes. So that means that the cells have membrane-bound organelles, and then they have all these different structures within their cells that help them to carry out different life functions. So the fungi are eukaryotic in nature. Now, many of the fungal cells are unicellular. An example being the yeasts. They are unicellular cells. But we also have multicellular cells, which are fungal cells. So the cells that we have in organisms such as the mushrooms and the toadstools are multicellular in nature. So this goes to show that for fungi, they could either be unicellular in nature or they could be multicellular in nature. Now, an interesting other characteristic of fungi is that they do not have chlorophyll. They don't have chlorophyll, they don't have chloroplast. Now, they don't have roots, they don't have stems, they don't have leaves. They have none of these features which I have just mentioned. Now, an interesting feature of the fungi, or an interesting characteristics of the kingdom fungi, is that they store their excess sugars. They store their excess sugars in the form of glycogen. And this is very important because many other eukaryotic organisms also store their excess sugar in the form of glucogen. Now, the mode of feeding or mode of nutrition of fungi is majorly saprophytic in nature. And what's the meaning of saprophytic nutrition? Saprophytic nutrition is nutrition in which the organism is feeding on dead or decaying materials. And what do? These dead or decaying materials, they have a way of putting digestive enzymes, digestive juices on these dead or decaying organisms, and then from those dead and decaying matter, they are able to digest some of the matter and then absorb it back into their system. That's the meaning of saprophytic feeding, and a lot of fungi feed through saprophytic feeding, and this is quite important. Now, the cell wall of fungi, that's another characteristic, is majorly made of chitin. Now, chitin is a special structure. It's a polymer structure which is found in insects. It's found in many other organisms too. It's a polymer structure, and polymer structure means that it has monomer units that make up that polymer structure. Chitin is a carbohydrate and is made up of monomer units which is called N-glucosamine. These monomer units, when it comes together, is formed. There's a bond that forms, from each of these monomer units. It's beta 1,4-glycosidic bond. When it forms from each monomer unit, we form this bond is between the monomer units, and it forms the polymer which we call chitin. So the cell walls of fungal cells are made up of chitin, and this is very important to know as one of the features of the saprophytes. Now, the saprophytes, some of them also have a vegetative body. The vegetative body is what we call a hyphae. We can see it in many of the fungi. It can be seen in fungi such as our aspergillus niger, aspergillus flavus, our rhizopus. All these fungi have the vegetative body, which is called the hyphae. This is very important. It usually looks like a fine thread, and it has something like a head on the top, which carries a lot of the genetic materials of the fungal cell. This is very important to know. Now, fungi also reproduce with two major processes. They can reproduce asexually through binary fission, or they can also reproduce sexually using the method of conjugation. This is very, very important to know. Also, the fungi are usually found in moist environments. They are not, it's not really as if they are in aquatic environment or in water, but they are usually found in damp and moist environments in order to protect themselves from desiccation and from drying out. Another important thing to note is that the fungi are found the fungi are usually non-motile organisms. That means they don't have structures for locomotion. They don't have flagella, they don't have pseudopodia, they don't have cilium, they don't cilia, they don't have any other structure for locomotion. So they are non-motile organisms. This is important to know. When you think of fungi, you remember the molds that we have on bread, the molds that we can have on eba. All these things are actually fungi. When you have your clothes being stored in a room or a wardrobe for a long time and these clothes are not worn, you notice that if you take up these clothes, they look moldy, they could have white substances on them, they smell in a particular funny way. This is because fungi, for an example, one which we call mildew, has grown on these clothes, even as the clothes are being kept in the closet or in the wardrobe. And then it makes them have that smell and that look. So this is an important kingdom in the 5 kingdoms that we know of organisms, the kingdom fungi. And like I mentioned before, we have different examples such as the mushrooms, the toadstools, the Aspergillus niger, Aspergillus flavors, the Rhizopus stolonifer, and these are all different types of fungi. Now it's important that we know the different diagrams of these fungi and we're able to draw them and label them correctly. On this video, I'm going to put different examples of diagrams of different fungi. It's good as biology students to know these diagrams and be able to draw them and reproduce them very correctly. Thank you for listening to this lecture. Please subscribe to our channel and share our content. Thank you for listening to us. Have a wonderful day.